Hey, what's going on, guys? This is the Pancake Spy returning. Again, it's been a while, like a really long time. Don't worry, Last Jedi Rewrite Part 2 is coming out eventually, but we're bringing it back. My Versus series. Now, due to the fact that I don't have as much time for YouTube anymore, I am shortening the series down. If you remember from my Star Wars vs. Marvel series, where I didn't even finish it, but I took like a bunch of Marvel characters and I put them up against Star Wars characters, and I thought, oh, who'd win? It's that format. So for this, we're gonna have 5 different categories for our 2 combatants: physicality, lightsaber skills, force powers, tactical ingenuity, and armor and weapons. We're gonna rank them, and then we're gonna compare them against each other and say, who do we think wins? So it's kind of like Sir Splash, or now known as Your Favorite Villain, kind of like his format. So today we're going to be putting Kylo Ren from Rise of Skywalker up against Grand Inquisitor from Star Wars Rebels. The reason I chose this is because I don't think Kylo Ren gets a lot. Like, all the versus things with Kylo were made after Force Awakens, and no one ever bothered to do him later down the line. And again, why would anyone bother to do him down the line? But except me, and I was trying to figure out a good opponent that could actually have a chance against, or not wreck instantly, and I thought the Grand Inquisitor was a good choice for him. So I do see them in equal footing. So again, we will be taking Kylo Ren from the events of the Rise of Skywalker, basically by the time where he faces Rey on the Death Star, and the Grand Inquisitor when he fights Kanan and Ezra on Tarkin's Star Destroyer. Also, Kylo Ren's Force Dyad will not be assisting him. He has no connection. The Dyad cannot assist him in any way. So yeah, let's begin. Alright, so we're going to start off with our analysis of Kylo Ren. So for physicality, we have it in 3 sections: strength, speed, and endurance. So strength-wise, Kylo is pretty capable. He's basically overpowered just about everyone he's come up against: Rey, Finn, Ren, the 3 Jedi who tried to kill him. So again, none of them were really noted for their strength, but I mean, they were all still respectable physical combatants, and Ren was able to physically overpower each of them. Speed-wise, Kylo was able to blitz the Knights of Ren, and he was also able to keep pace with the Praetorian Guards and evade many of their strikes. But apart from that, his speed was just slightly above average. So, endurance-wise, Kylo was actually pretty good. This is a guy who took a bowcaster to the gut, and this is the same bowcaster that was sending soldiers flying up in the air, like, what? So he is pretty capable. Although he was disabled by a lightsaber stab to the gut, he basically survived, even though he was on the brink of death and he was going to die anyway, and then plot armor saved him. But yeah, despite getting shot with a bowcaster and then later getting hit across the shoulder by a lightsaber, not bad, Ren. Not bad at all for how well he performed against Finn and Rey. Alright, so as a lightsaber duelist, Kylo Ren is very inconsistent. I mean, we have showings of him taking on pretty high-tier knight-level combatants, and then he's losing to a janitor, stormtrooper, and a scavenger with no training. So, I mean, I would assume, being the apprentice of Luke Skywalker, he was probably a Form 5 specialist, because that was the fighting style Luke Skywalker specialized in. So I assume he was capable in that form, but again, I don't think he was an absolute master. He's definitely very overpowering, and I feel like a lot of his advantage as a duelist comes from being more physically strong than his adversary, because he needs his physical strength to overpower them. In terms of technical skill, he has been able to make good use of his cross guards, and I mean, but he hasn't shown any use of force integration or using the environment to his advantage, which are pretty big things if you're going to be a successful lightsaber duelist. So, he has shown some skill with wielding two weapons at once, but it's not enough for me to just say, oh yeah, he can do that. Force abilities. Kylo is pretty advanced for a canon character. He can do like your basic force pushes, and he can send opponents flying pretty far with telekinetic pushes and hurls, which is pretty impressive. But more than that, he can also force choke people, and they can fly onto a wall for some reason. However, he is also very capable of force freeze, and is even able to freeze opponents and blaster bolts, and even perform this ability against other trained force users when in a lightsaber duel, as he did with Rey on Endor, Moon of Endor, I don't even know anymore. He's also demonstrated the ability to rip into opponents' minds and extract information, which he stated he learned from Snoke. So, it's a pretty decent power, but I mean, it's becoming less and less impressive as more Force users learn how to do it. I mean, he has performed Force jumps and on the Endor planet and surpassed Mare Su, which is pretty impressive. Like, just completely jumping over the massive waves. So, that's pretty good. Alright, in terms of tactical sensibility, Kylo's more of a I'm gonna chop you into pieces rather than actually thinking. He's much more of a barbarian than he is a tactician. He usually just draws the saber and starts hacking, rather than maybe thinking of what he's gonna do. I mean, this is the guy who goes around Last Jedi knowing what a force projection is, and being like, oh, that's not a force projection. Yeah, I know this much about projections, and then being completely fooled by one by the end of the movie. He also got his saber pinned by Rey on Endor, which is kind of bad because he was supposed to be winning that fight, and she was still gaining some ground against him. And again, the only reason Kylo won his fight with Rey was really because of his physicality. She couldn't tire him out. She couldn't overpower him or over dominate him physically, and he was just putting her through the meat grinder, but he wasn't really keeping himself tactically aware. He was just attacking until she tired herself out. So he's not much of a thinker. And then in terms of equipment, Kylo has a mask that makes him look like a duck. He has some robes, and he has a cross-guarded lightsaber. Basically a single-bladed lightsaber, but Kylo has demonstrated that he can use the cross guards to his advantage, but he's only ever done it once, and it was against a janitor. But, still pretty capable. So, yeah, that's Kylo Ren. Moving on to his opponent. Alrighty, moving on to the Grand Inquisitor. Physicality, so strength-wise, the Inquisitor was pretty good. I mean, he was matching and even overpowering Kanan Jarrus, who could just knock out fully grown soldiers with clotheslines like that, like this on the snap of a finger. He was pretty physically capable, and he's also contended with the might of Darth Vader, but again, Vader was seriously holding back. He even said it himself, as that he was holding back, but he has been under that mechanical strength, so that's something pretty cool. Speed and agility-wise, the Grand Inquisitor was actually pretty advanced. I mean, the dude has taken on two opponents of younger age than him, and completely outmaneuvered them with agility, being Kanan and Ezra, literally evading both of them and throwing them back with punches and kicks. So, and he has also outmaneuvered Jocasta Nu and Darth Vader. Again, Vader was still holding back, but it was still pretty cool to see. Durability-wise, Grand Inquisitor does not have a lot going for him. I mean, he's taken some of Ezra Bridger's stun bolts, and apart from that, he was brought to his knees by Vader shattering his lightsaber, and he was on his knees crying for mercy. So he doesn't have a lot in the realm of pain tolerance and durability. So, alright, as a lightsaber duelist, the Grand Inquisitor was pretty decent. I'd put him at a mid-tier, high-tier Jedi Knight. He was stated to have knowledge of all 7 forms of lightsaber combat. However, having knowledge of all 7 forms of lightsaber combat does not instantly mean you're a master of all 7 forms. Throughout his fights, he really seems to favor Form 2 Makashi, which is all about fencing and one-handed blade work, but he more than has enough skill and enough knowledge of the other forms to defend himself should Makashi fail him. So he's also shown some skill in Nyman with the saber staff, so he isn't a 100% novice, but I mean, the fact that Kanan Jarrus could beat him was pretty bad. Force abilities. Grand Inquisitor was not all that powerful, but it kind of makes sense because Vader and Sidious don't want anyone toppling them, even though I don't think the Inquisitor could. But, I mean, he was capable of using powerful force pushes on Kanan Jarrus and Ezra Bridger, and yeah, he was pretty capable. He has shown use of the Force choke, so he is capable. Like Kylo, he can also rip into the minds of his opponents. However, the only time he even attempted this, he was resisted by Kanan Jarrus, who's Kanan Jarrus. He's Padawan level. But then again, I put that more to Kanan's own mental resistance than any weakness on the Inquisitors. So, I mean, very basic with his use of the Force. I mean, he has used saber throws, and he can sense Jedi from across the galaxy, or he can sense them from far distances away. So that's pretty cool, but he's also been force pushed by Jocasta Nu, who's in her 90s and was a librarian, and he got force pushed by her. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Tactical ingenuity. Grand Inquisitor was pretty advanced, really advanced. This dude read on the Jedi fighting styles so much that, in a matter of seconds, he could pinpoint up which fighting style was being used against him, and he even took it a step further, but he could realize the different masters' techniques. With Kanan, he instantly recognized Depa Bilaba's influence on his style and instantly pointed it out with Form 3, which is pretty impressive that he could just do that, on a whim. So, I mean, he can instantly figure out his opponent's fighting style and adjust his technique to suit the needs of the moment, which is pretty intelligent. I'll give him credit. So, there he goes. And then for equipment, so lightsaber and armor, the Grand Inquisitor has a pretty unique lightsaber. He's a double-bladed spinning lightsaber that can spin on the rotate, and he also has light battle armor. So there you go. That's the Grand Inquisitor. On to tallying the who wins. All right, moving on. We're gonna be comparing our Darksiders, comparing all of their attributes, their feats, everything. Alright, so we're going to compare their physicality, dueling skills, force powers, tactics, and weaponry. Alright, so we're going to move into physicality. So, strength-wise, Kylo gets the edge. The Grand Inquisitor just hasn't shown very good levels. I mean, his punches and kicks are capable, but he hasn't outright overpowered anyone to the same extent that Kylo has. Speed-wise, the Inquisitor gets the edge. Again, Kylo is capable, but he hasn't shown to be able to perform such speed and agility as the Grand Inquisitor. Endurance, it's not even a contest. Kylo Ren has taken some pretty damn good injuries and has got up and kept going, where the Grand Inquisitor was brought down by his lightsaber getting shattered and has been force pushed by Jocasta Nu. But, so yeah. Lightsaber dueling skills. It's tricky, but I'm gonna have to go with the Grand Inquisitor. It's a slight edge, but one, the Grand Inquisitor just has more lightsaber forms at his disposal, and he has much, and I think he's just better trained for a fighter like Kylo. Again, he was trained by Darth Vader, a Form 5 master, if not the master of Form 5, and Kylo is just kind of a above average level Form 5 user, above average knight level Form 5 user. So I think the Grand Inquisitor will be able to figure out how to handle that. Now for the argument, the people who are going to argue, well, Form 5 is actually the counter to Form 2 because Anakin beat Dooku with it. That really depends on the skill of the user. Plus the Grand Inquisitor has 6 other lightsaber forms he can go off of if that fails him. And I mean, the Grand Inquisitor has also fought against strength opponents like Vader and Kanan Jarrus, so I don't think Kylo's going to be much of a problem for him. Force abilities. I'm giving it to Kylo. Grand Inquisitor is capable and he can fight back, but if Jocasta Nu can throw him across a room, I have no doubt that a Skywalker could throw him across a room. Again, Kylo is pretty capable. He's pretty strong. He does have the Force Freeze, which is, again, another advantage on his part, because he can just Force Freeze the Inquisitor's lightsaber, and the Grand Inquisitor's never engaged someone with that Force power before. And I think both can telepathically resist the other. Okay, so moving on into tactical ingenuity, Grand Inquisitor sweeps the edge. Kylo is a barbarian. He does not think, he just fights. The Grand Inquisitor can actually think in a duel. The Grand Inquisitor is instantly going to be able to basically analyze his opponent's fighting style and find a counter. He's like General Grievous, just not as good. So, in hacks, abilities, and gear, I'm also gonna give it to the Inquisitor. His lightsaber does have its flaws, but it's still a way more radical and crazy weapon than 2 little blades protruding out of Kylo's blade. Plus, he has battle armor. Not very good battle armor, but I mean, it's still battle armor, and he still has that. Alright, so tallying up, Kylo has 3 advantages over the Grand Inquisitor, and the Grand Inquisitor has 4, I think? Yeah, I think 4. So, again, it doesn't really... let's just break this down. Which advantages are really going to be, necessary? I think, yeah. Okay. No, I think we got it, so... Anyway, we're moving on to the verdict. I would say the winner would probably win a 6 out of 10. Again, these two would have a damn good fight. These two would have a really damn good fight. Okay, so I think both combatants would probably start out with lightsaber combat. Kylo would probably be on the offensive, while the Grand Inquisitor would be analyzing Kylo's fighting style. He would soon realize that Kylo was probably a Form 5 user, maybe there was some Form 1 in there, and would adjust his fighting style. He'd probably open with Makashi, and he'd probably keep Kylo at arm's length. Kylo would again just probably be pounding on the Inquisitor, but again, the Grand Inquisitor would keep him at bay for a good amount of time. I think this would go on for a short while before Force abilities would come into play. And I think the Inquisitor would be the one to kick in the Force powers. Maybe he attempts to push Kylo back, or he leaps away, or he does some sort of Force move. This provokes Kylo, and he starts breaking out the Force abilities. Maybe he starts freezing the Inquisitor's blade, or delivering telekinetic attacks of his own. Again, this would be... The Inquisitor might falter for a moment, being like, oh dang, I think he's stronger in the Force than me. And this is when he'd draw his saber staff or his double-bladed spinning weapon. Kylo would instantly back off because this is a weapon he's never faced before, and the Inquisitor would take a huge advantage here with his lightsaber. And he would be going all out, now realizing that Kylo wasn't just some ordinary little dark Inquisitor. This is a true threat to him, and he would be putting all of his effort. Kylo would be going on the defensive. He'd do pretty decent, but he'd really just be relying on evasion, physical strength, and Force abilities to kind of keep the Inquisitor off. Eventually, I could see him getting somewhat familiar with the weapon, and I could see him attempting to contend. Again, the Inquisitor would realize, uh-oh, he's getting a grasp on my saber, and would then start throwing out the acrobatics. Now, Kylo would be able to contend with speed and strength, but I think after a while, the flaws and the cracks in Kylo's fighting style would start to reveal themselves. I mean, he's definitely going to give Grand Inquisitor a damn good fight. And again, the victor is winning 7 out of 10. I could see maybe 6 out of 10 because they're so evenly matched. I do see them as seriously evenly matched. But for me, Grand Inquisitor just has more experience and knowledge facing different types of fighters. The only fighters that Kylo really has experience against is Mare Su, a janitor, fellow Jedi, who he already knows their fighting training, and so he could just do that. And Ren, who, again, wasn't really that good. So, where the Grand Inquisitor has, he's sparred with Darth Vader, he's sparred with different Inquisitors. Sure, he's fought against Jocasta Nu. So, yeah. So, I could see Kylo doing pretty well against the Inquisitor. I could see him throwing him back with TK, force freezing his lightsaber, and getting some good hits in. But I think he would ultimately lose. So, for me, if I were a betting man, I'd put my chips on the Grand Inquisitor, but I wouldn't take the risk. So say I was playing poker, I would not throw all of my chips out there. I'd probably throw just a few. If I win something, cool. If I lose something, I don't lose much. So, in a 6 out of 10, I declare the battered and broken Grand Inquisitor the victor. Alright guys, that was the first episode in the return of the Versus series. I hope y'all enjoyed. If you agree, cool. If you think Kylo would win, I'd love to debate. I'd love to hear your argument and try and see if I made a mistake or if I forgot something. So, yeah, that'd be cool. As always, don't feel obliged to like and subscribe. Do it if you want, but you are not obliged. So, alright guys, peace out, bye.